Greetings, my excellent friend. Welcome to the Heavy Metal History Report.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the podcast, my guest joining me this week is Nick and Hugo from the band Equipoise. Guys, thanks for doing this.
No problem, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stoked to talk to you guys. I'm glad we finally got to get to make this happen, even though the album's been out for a couple weeks now. It'll be cool to kind of dive into it a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, well, somebody dropped the ball. That was me.
No, man, you're good. You're good. It's just kind of a cliche thing to start with, but it's kind of what I like starting with here to get the conversation rolling, and I think it's an important thing to kind of ask. But what were your guys' early influences as far as getting into heavy metal? You know, what were those bands you remember hearing, those first records you remember buying that really just like sucked you in to want to play this genre of music?
Hugo, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, sure. Let me go first. I think the first heavy music CD that I've put on my childhood was Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park.
Me too.
My dad had this, and me and my brother would just like try out the different CDs when he wasn't there, and that one really stood out to us. And then later on, another band that really did it for me was System of a Down.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say these two bands really got me into the heavier genre. And then I remember the first time I heard Necrophagus, I was absolutely tripping out, and I think it came from these three bands, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite a jump to go from Linkin Park to System of a Down to Necrophagist. I know you listen to other stuff in between there, I'm sure, but
yeah, of course. I mean, these would be like the three pillars, and also they came at much different times in my life. But yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I always find interesting too, is like how quickly once you kind of get into the genre, it just escalates to the most extreme end of it, and you kind of never look back after that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Nick, what about you, man?
Okay, so same for me. Hybrid Theory. My brother gave me the CD, and I didn't really listen to music at all. And that sounds kind of weird, but it was like 5th grade, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to it like a bunch. Like I just constantly listened to it, and then started getting into pop punk a lot. Like I got into Blink-182 and Yellow Card and Taking Back Sunday for like the more kind of almost post-hardcore emo sound, brand new, all these bands.
Yeah.
From there, like my sort of heavier transition was Senses Fail, and then I got into the Fall of Troy big time. Like I was super into them.
Oh man, I love that band.
Yeah, they're so good. And yes, I'm a hipster. It's because of Guitar Hero 3. I actually had a compilation with one of their songs. It was Wacko Jacko, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember the full title, but I hated this song. And then I started listening to them, and I was like, oh, wow, this song's actually sick. I got into them, and then I got into the number 12 Looks Like You. And then I just kind of jumped into death metal. And like my friend gave me an iPod. It had a little bit of deathcore, so like I was listening like As Blood Runs Black. But
Okay.
the band that really stuck with me was Black Dahlia Murder. I listened to them like so much. I was just in love with their sound. I thought they nailed the aesthetic that I was, after in terms of what I wanted to hear. Then I started going into almost an exclusively old school death metal phase. Like I listened to anything that was 90s progressive death metal. I was listening to a lot of technical thrash metal from like the late 80s, 90s, like Watchtower, Corner, all that stuff. And I kind of reeled myself back into tech death in about 2014 with Inferi, ironically enough. Inferi, I found the Path of Apotheosis, and I was like, man, this is such a good album.
Yeah.
And I'm honored that we're label mates with them now. Like, that feels pretty good. But yeah, like that and Singularity, Surruption, all these great albums came out in 2014. I was like, all right, I'm an idiot. I should have been listening to the whole modern death scene this whole time. That was kind of it, man. I decided in 2015, like I just want to start jamming out and playing music, and yeah, that's Equipoise.
So, it's funny you mentioned Fall of Troy. That's one band that I always kind of get shit for, because I do kind of tend to throw them into some subgenre of heavy metal. And, you know, Thomas Eric's guitar playing is so unique that it's kind of hard for me to not lump them in with that, because it's kind of aggressive in his style, even though they do some softer stuff. But
he's crazy, man. He's very talented guitarist. Like, he still blows my mind. I caught them. I don't remember who I saw him with. I saw him, I think it was when OK came out.
Mm-hmm.
That was called, right? OK?
Yeah.
That came out. I think they were touring with Periphery, maybe. I don't remember, because like I remember being all adamant, like, "Oh, I'm only here to see Paul Troy." So it was probably Periphery, because I didn't listen to him at all.
Yeah.
But I just remember, like, I was like, man, I get to see Thomas Eric do the whole like vocals and guitar thing, and he just does all these crazy guitar lines that just blow my. They're very like lead driven all the time, and I still to this day, as like a tech death guitarist, think, man, he's nuts.
Yeah.
He's something else.
That, you know, that's the thing with like tech death in particular, the amount of skill and uniqueness it takes to kind of like write a lot of the music. I think it just goes over a lot of people's heads. You know, I mean, you hear the comments or read the comments all the time, and it's just, it's too technical. Like, I can't understand what's going on, or this and that. And it's just like, well, how much are you really listening to the music if you can't understand like the technicality that's involved with it, or even at least enjoy it in that respect too, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So like with your opinion too, maybe both of you guys could chime in on this. You know, I felt like there was a couple years probably in like the mid 2000s, maybe even early 2000s too, where like tech death kind of died off like really hard, and it seems like within the past 2 or 3 years it's really gaining a lot of momentum again. You're seeing all these bands pop up or regroup and kind of get a new life. Do you think that's a fair assessment to what happened with the genre?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, because I got into metal in like 2009.
Okay.
So, you know, I didn't really have a chance at seeing a lot of this. Like, I knew about Obscura. That was the first tech death band I heard. Oh no, actually, I mean, I heard a little bit of Equipoise, but yeah, like, it's really hard for me to gauge whether the popularity then versus the popularity. And in retrospect, I don't know how popular tech death really is.
Mm-hmm.
I still, in my mind, think like, okay, it's still small. Like, I'm just so immersed in the niche it is that in my mind it's popular. But as far as I know, like, it's just because I'm so surrounded by these individuals that love tech death that I think it's popular, and it's probably not as popular as I believe it to be. So it's tough to say. But then you have bands like Archspire that are, and Beyond Creation seem like they're pretty big these days. So, Hugo, what do you think?
About your initial statement, I'm not sure I can confirm the entirety of it, but I do feel like it's getting a lot of momentum these days. I tend to see a lot of, well, like Nick said, we might be a little bit biased since we have this whole community, you know, online. All our friends, all our surroundings are most likely tech death musicians or metal musicians or fans in general. So it's kind of hard to have a objective point of view. But
sure.
As I said, I do feel there's a momentum when I see a lot of tour packages, announcements, and like I know lots of bands are recording music. It's became so easy to record now, and so yeah, I do feel like it's getting more recognition definitely than it was before. I don't know about that specific dip you mentioned. I don't even know if I was using the internet that often at that time to really know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've always kind of kept my ear to the ground in some respects with stuff like that. Like, because even myself, like, I wasn't super into tech death until like probably like 2010, you know, myself. But I was aware of bands, but even then, like, I could count them all on one hand, you know. Whereas now, definitely way more, and it's awesome to see like more bands kind of getting into that style.
I love it, dude, and you know, it drives me nuts that people kind of like they kind of talk shit on it these days. Like, it's, you know, first of all, I think it's such a parroted kind of almost brain dead statement where people are like, "Oh, the music's just made for technicality's sake," and I'm like, that's such a stupid statement to make because it's so not true. I mean, in my mind, like when people are playing tech death, it's just the best way I can describe it is like, okay, so say the tech death we play is very melodic. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah.
But like for me, I enjoy playing tech death because it gives me an opportunity to really flesh out like melodic lines. In more traditional mellow death, you're playing maybe a couple notes in a riff because it's kind of all inherently there based on the chord you're playing. You don't really need to kind of play all those notes. But for me, I like tech death because I can take that scale or those chords and just kind of deconstruct them and have this very elaborate suite of notes. And it's in my mind very flavorful, and then you can add the harmonies. It's just very expressive in my mind. And for anybody to think it's just kind of like this, constantly fast, grooveless, soulless style of music, it doesn't make sense to me, man. I don't get it.
Yeah,
and
I agree with you 100%.
Like I definitely think there's a lot. Now, granted, there are tech death bands that play like a very unrelenting style of tech death that, sure, if I was to call it, I don't know if I'd call it soulless, but I can see it being maybe soulless or a challenging listen at times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think just because it's technical doesn't mean it's lacking in any emotions. I mean, think about classical music. Classical music's incredibly technical.
Yeah.
For some reason, I guess because it's not like, 250 plus BPM blast beats or guitars that for some reason it has soul. And I don't know. I don't know how much I agree with that.
Well, I think too, especially for me, in my opinion, it's showcasing like the full range of the instrument, like how much you can really do with a guitar, and that's amazing to see, like just knowing that you can harmonize all these notes and different scales and different chords and make a cohesive, very melodic song out of it. And it's almost like a giant math puzzle, to kind of put all those notes and riffs together in inside of that.
Yeah, and the bands that do it well, in my opinion, do it to where it just sounds catchy. I mean, anybody saying that tech death can't be catchy, again, that's a foolish, unexplored statement to me because I don't agree with that at all. I hear plenty of catchy tech death, and I listen to pop. Like nothing hidden here. I like Justin Bieber, okay? I like Ariana Grande. I like plenty of pop artists. I enjoy it.
Sure.
But if I can enjoy pop and then I can also say the same notion that tech death is catchy, then maybe, for example, that opinion should be valued because obviously if I listen to catchy stuff like pop and then I think tech death is catchy, obviously there's some credibility to what I'm saying there. Because I know a lot of metalheads don't really get down with like pop music as much.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I love pop. It kind of helped me a lot with writing the music, I'm not going to lie. The structuring. Because I like to take the very simple structuring and apply it to how I write songs, like almost the chorus verse structure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, tech death can be incredibly catchy.
Yeah, I agree, especially if you like compose it in the right way that it kind of resonates with somebody as being a catchy song. It it's a no-brainer at that point.
Hit the right notes, you hit the right groove, syncopation here and there. It all works.
So I want to kind of backtrack here for a second with both you guys as musicians. What interested you about playing your respective instruments? Nick, like what got you into playing guitar, and how did you learn? And then Hugo, you as well. Next, we'll ask you the same thing. But not guitar, for bass, obviously.
Obviously, I'd let Hugo go first since I haven't stopped talking. But I'll go real quick. Oh yeah, Hugo, go ahead.
Sure. It's a funny story. My brother had a band. He's a drummer, and he was playing with two guitar players, and the band lacked a bassist, so I decided to pick up a bass for that. And then I kind of experimented with the guitar as well. A year later, I bought a guitar, and then a year later, I bought a drum set. So I was kind of playing the three instruments for a while together, and then I decided to focus on bass because I was following a bass teacher. That's about it. And then I think I kept playing because that was my favorite of the three, and also I felt like I didn't know a lot of basses compared to the other musicians, so it kind of makes sense for me to push that instrument particularly. And then as far as, because there's always people that are wondering about the 5-string, 6-string, and then the fretless thing, it kind of went by step by step. I started playing 5-string when I joined Brought by Pain in 2012, I believe.
Okay.
And then I slowly moved to 6-string. I got a 6-string, which I got defretted to play some Beyond Creation stuff. So, and then more fretless for Brought by Pain now, and Equipoise and a bunch of other projects. So I think I found my my instrument now.
I think so too, man.
There is something about a fretless bass, man, that I absolutely love hearing. I honestly wish more bass players did it.
I can't believe I see a lot of people complain about them, and I can't believe it, man. I
love it.
Such a good sound. It's just nice. It's like it really lets you counterpoint to the guitars. Like I mean, it works with a fretted bass, but just something about the notes, and you can really play independently from the guitars, and it just works so well.
So, Hugo, what, because I'm kind of ignorant with like bass guitar stuff here, but what are some challenges like people may not really know about, like from playing a traditional bass to like a fretless 6-string bass, because it seems like such a massive instrument there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a question of getting used to it, It's really not that complicated if you know how to play a 4-string.
Mm-hmm.
You just add a couple string and then you remove the factor of the frets. But you said stuff that people don't really realize as challenges, or
yeah,
it's an adaptation, I would say, to find a good tone, because most bass kind of have a sound that you kind of scoop the mids, so you hear a lot of the lows and a lot of the highs. Let's say in a standard metal mix, you wouldn't hear much, but you would hear like the rumbling, and some string noises. Whereas a fretless, I feel like, really shines in the mids, as far as frequency goes.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of getting used to really find the sweet spot of your instrument and then adapt your playing to it. I feel like it's so much more dynamic as well, especially on a 6-string, because you get really those really low notes and those really high notes that can really shine through a mix. And other than that, I feel like people might think it's harder than it really is. It's really not that hard. I mean, I'm talking for myself, but if you can play a bass properly, you can definitely play a fretless bass and then learn along the way.
And so what is your gear and like preferred setup as far as like the bass that you play and everything?
I use Kiesel basses. They really make me sound good. I really love them. I use the active electronics on them pretty heavily. I rely on them. And then for the rest of my gear, I only use an XFX 2 XL Plus with a tone match from my pedal rig, which was Dark Glass D7K and DSM Noisemaker Omnicab, which is a cabinet simulator. So, and then with a compressor on top of it. So it's really simple, and with the XFX, it's really practical to bring on the road. I always have my presets ready to go, and with the patch changes that we have going on for Beyond Creation, really makes it easy for me, and sounds always super good.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that excuse me, that you're on this podcast, because funny enough, last year I was trying to get somebody from Beyond Creation on the podcast when your album was about to come out. I really love that album, so it's cool to finally like get to talk to somebody from that band a little bit.
Cool, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Well, my pleasure, man.
Yeah, that's something I want to get to here in a minute, because like the whole having I guess for lack of a better word, supergroup thing here. But Nick, your guitar playing, like what kind of got you into that?
When I was in 6th grade, I got very, very, very into Blink-182.
Mm-hmm.
Like big time. My sister and I just moved to Florida. We were living with my parents came along, but we were staying with my aunt for a while. And she had a guitar, like a really crappy, probably whatever $100 guitar. But this is gonna sound silly, but like I always watched music videos of them playing, and I just like tried to emulate it. Like we'd screw around, like we had this little container, and she had like drumsticks, and she'd beat on it, and then I literally like randomly strum strings on the guitar, just screw around, like just to get the feel, like, oh, this is so cool. I remember I used to break so many strings and stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't, but I really didn't have any idea then. And yeah, I mean, I just kept kind of screwing around with it, and then I decided to learn how to read tabs, and I was like, oh wow, I can play, quote unquote. I just kept doing it, and I did take a hiatus for a couple of years. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Guitar Hero. I played that game like religiously for years, which is stupid. I can still play real guitar, but I got back into it in like 2011, pretty heavy. I just started playing more and more and more, and I was like, okay, I miss doing this, and yeah, I've been playing since then. So I've only really been playing like modern tech deathy kind of stuff since probably 2015.
Wow. So were you mostly like self-taught, or did you like kind of learn music theory and everything like that?
Never took a lesson. I don't know any theory. It's just years trial and error.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Not that it's better or anything, but it's just kind of how I ended up doing it.
Man, that's wild. Because like there's a lot of like really complicated stuff on this record that I would like not to knock your playing, but it's, you know, you listen to it, it's like, oh, this guy must know music theory, you know, like just by hearing some of this stuff, and it's like that's crazy that you just for lack of a better word, you just winged it.
I just kind of hum stuff out. I'm like, oh, this sounds like a cool melody, and then
yeah,
you know, like I kind of get like what does and doesn't fit in scales. Like, I couldn't tell you the name of a scale. I don't know like what notes fit, but like if I hear it, I can hear there's like the clash, and it's like, oh, okay, this is supposed to go here. I've just been getting better at learning how to fit chromatics into like runs. Okay. I don't know. You play music or anything?
I play guitar, but I'm like really terrible at it. I don't.
You know what chromaticism is, right? It's basically like anything outside of the scale. So,
yeah, okay.
I've been learning. It's kind of like more of a jazz technique. Like they implement a lot of chromatics into their scales because it's like basically that outside note kind of creates sort of a dissonance, but it if you sandwich it between two notes that are like fitting in the scale, it sounds real nice.
Okay.
It just kind of adds that little suspense factor. Now, I composed some of the piano lines on that album, so I did it more on that. I didn't really do it on guitar as much, but I've been getting better because with my other bandmate Colin, Virulent Depravity, he is super into jazz, and he's taught me an insane amount of stuff. So hopefully, like the next album will be better with doing the more chromaticisms and all that, no pun intended, jazz.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing about this band is you are working with all these amazing musicians from all these other bands, in essence, kind of creating this super group. How did that all come together?
Well, my boy Hugo was the first one to get to me, so or rather I got to him, but the first one to actually acknowledge me. So I basically, yeah, he's a good man. I actually I reached out to Sam Santiago before him, I think, for drums, and he just kind of didn't answer, so whatever. But yeah, so like you know, I my friend Zach Hahn and I were just kind of jamming around. We were both in Pittsburgh. It was like the summertime, and you're familiar with a couple of the track titles, maybe?
Yeah, I've definitely jammed through the album many times so far. So
the first song I wrote was Dualis Flamel. I was just kind of jamming that. Like, I was coming up with the riffs, and like he was, you know, playing along the harmony. I'd think, okay, here, play this harmony. And then we did that for Sigil and Sidious, and then I started writing a Suit of My Flesh, and then we just kind of stopped jamming in the summer, and then like 3 months later, I or no, not 3 months later. Sorry, I got Guitar Pro, and then 3 months later, I ended up writing 8 tracks, which was pretty much all the 4 tracks on the album.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out how to write one song, and I was like, okay, I can get used to this. And I started writing compressed bass, started writing drums, and I was like, okay, this sounds like a full band now. And I tried reaching out to dudes in Pittsburgh, but Tech Death isn't really that prominent out there, so I didn't have much luck. And then I was like, screw this, man. Like, not to sound like hopefully cocky or anything, but I kind of felt like I had a good product. And I was like, okay, I think I could show this to maybe somebody that's a little more established, and maybe they would be interested in tagging along, and being a part of this. Like, I don't really care if we play shows or not. I just want to get this music out. I'm embarrassed of that, too, because the music sounded like crap compared to what it turned out to be. So I'm embarrassed to think of what I showed, like, Hugo and Stevie, but they liked it. So, yeah, I reached out to Hugo. He obliged, and then Stevie was, like, absolutely in love with it, and our little lineup together, put out a couple singles, and then I happened to be friends with Jimmy Pitts on Facebook, and we were just talking about like the golden age, the 90s progressive death metal scene, and how like it would be sick if there's still keyboards in death metal. And I was like, hey man, like go check out this music if you want to be a part of this. Like I'd love to have you. And he's like, yeah, like this is sick, and I'm super glad joined up. Put out an EP, and then apparently Stevie and Phil used to chat a little bit. And Phil apparently alluded to being a little envious that he was a part of the band. At the time, I was talking to Phil about doing a guest solo, or rather guest solos for the song "Casting Exile."
Okay.
I was like, hey, like, you're welcome to just kind of join if you want. And he's like, yeah. And I almost shit my pants because, like, I seriously, it was like the craziest thing ever. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna be part of this, and I was very excited by that. And then we got Chason because he was a mutual friend of Stevie's. And then last but not least, Zach kind of didn't really have time to do what we needed to do, so he ended up leaving. It was very good mutual decision. Like we're still amazing friends, and we still get along very well and talk all the time. So no ill will there, thankfully. But with him came Sanjay, who had mastered our EP, and super glad. Nothing against Zach, but I'm very glad we did this because Sanjay is like brilliantly guitarist. And super hard. He actually came in. I didn't really have the time because I was working on like the orchestral composition and stuff. He actually picked up the slack for my lazy ass and recorded both the rhythms. I wanted to record my side, but like we were on a time crunch with mixing, and unfortunately we ended up having enough time because mixing was a bit delayed with like Mike going on tour and whatnot with Inferi.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was like, whatever, your rhythms sound good. I'm only gonna make them sound worse, so I'll track rhythms on the next album if you want. Yeah, there's our happy little lineup.
So everything that you had written out in Guitar Pro, did you just refine that a little more, or was it like ready to go for everybody to kind of like play when you were ready to record it?
For the EP, I literally wrote the stuff and I sent that to Hugo and Stevie and Jimmy too. And that was it. Like I did not do any passes. I did not do any adjustments, anything. So if you've heard our EP, Birthing Homunculi,
okay,
that was literally as is. Like I wrote that stuff, first stab and done. For the LP, however, I did a pass on every song just once. I went through. I went with guitar in hand. I actually didn't EP with any guitar. I just kind of typed it all up on Guitar Pro. But I was thinking, I want to make sure, like, because I saw we did pretty well with the EP. I was like, hey, there's a chance we might have to play shows sometime. So I got to make this all practical play. So I just kind of played it out on the and tabbing it out, and yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I just, I made sure to play everything with the guitars, and I kind of just modified some of the key signatures of the songs so they were a little more dynamic. Everything was like minor scale beforehand because I had like no understanding of key changes or anything like that. But that's where Colin Butler, actually, my friend, bandmate, Virulent Depravity, he helped me a lot with that. He used to get on my ass and tell me, like, dude, you need to stop writing everything minor. Like, that's what every metal band does. I learned to start, like, kind of writing with more major scale stuff to kind of offset that darker sound with, like, a happier sound, which is why in our album you hear, like, a lot of times it's not just that straight, like, pissed off necrophagy sound. It's more like campy, happy-go-lucky sound at times. And I think that dynamic's really important compositionally. So I'm definitely glad I became friends with him.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you know, I think even then, like, it doesn't sound too overtly happy in a way, but it is a little bit brighter. I get what you're saying there on that.
Oh yeah, it's not gonna sound full-fledged happy, but I think definitely, like, when it comes off that darker side of things, it ends up definitely working out.
Yeah.
It's
So
like go ahead. Sorry.
well, as far as like writing this record, how much input did everybody else have with like their parts? Like, was everything done from your end, or did you guys kind of collaborate together with everything?
So I tabbed out the drums. I gave Chason freedom with that. You know, there were some times where, like, I'd ask for him to keep like a kind of pacing. Like, he might have done something more groove oriented, where I'd ask him to do it like thrashier, and then he'd just retake that part. But gave him freedom with that. Everybody had full freedom with their solos. Sanjay, like, made a little change here and there in the rhythms, like maybe 3 changes. I didn't care. It didn't really bother me.
Yeah.
Hugo, I wrote the bass lines for that, but Hugo was free to change up stuff. But again, we were on time crunches, so he just kind of did whatever was there. He did make a couple changes, but they sounded great. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really believe in, like, restricting anybody. You know, if round 2, now that I think people in this are a little more invested,
Mm-hmm.
as long as they want to, I'm not going to force anybody. But if they want to contribute in their own way, like, I fully welcome that, because I don't think, if I want to do a solo project, I do a solo project.
Yeah.
I welcome everybody's contributions and inputs, and I think that's a very good way to go as a musician, because one, it kind of helps you stuff that ego down, and two, it just, something sort of like magical comes about, letting other musicians partake in kind of getting that melting pot of ideas together.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with like the caliber of guys that you have on this record, and it would be kind of remiss of you to not like get that input from them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's just kind of silly.
Yeah.
To not,
So when you started recording, because everybody's obviously in different areas, what were the logistics in that?
It just kind of worked out, thankfully. Everybody had their own home recording equipment. Actually, I had to get stuff for Chason.
Mm-hmm.
I said I didn't have to, but I felt kind of obligated, because, in my mind, like, a higher caliber drummer, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to, like, put this dude out. So I got him a laptop and just an interface for recording drums. He actually recorded those all from home, like, no dampening or anything. Just kind of did it in his bedroom. It's pretty crazy, man. The only person who recorded away from home was Phil, when he recorded his acoustic parts, and that's it.
Yeah, I read that that message you shared from that guy where you were talking about the drums.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh! Like, how often do you get dumb questions like that? Like, that's just
our inbox doesn't really get blown up that hard.
Man, I was just like, like, I was kind of in your end of it. Like, what does it matter if the drums are triggered or whatever? It's just like, just listen to the music, man.
I don't know how familiar you are with him, but it's like a rite of passage. Like, if your band gets messaged by him, like, it's like a good thing or whatever. It's like, oh, cool, like, your band's made it, quote unquote.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with this dude.
Yeah, no, there's a whole page. Oh, yeah, I think I shared the page. Yeah. No, he does it to everybody. Same statement, same everything. And then it's just like kind of a joke amongst the whole metal community. Say whatever crazy things they can to piss him off and get a reaction out of him.
That's hilarious. I had no idea.
I actually know somebody who, when he lived in Israel, knew him.
Really?
He said he was not the way he used to be. Like, he's like very homophobic. Oh my god, homophobic now, and just bigoted and a dickhead, obviously. But apparently he was pretty tame, and he didn't go around asking people about triggering or say hateful slurs or anything like that. So I don't know. I couldn't imagine knowing the guy.
Yeah, that is wild, man. Anyways, so as far as like recording everything, like what you said you were on a time crunch, like how long did it kind of take for everybody's pieces to come together once they had their duties, so to speak?
It was pretty quick. I mean, I think it was all within like a 4 or 5 month window.
Okay.
So at the time, the one thing that was kind of slower was lyrics, but I'm thankful for that because Stevie really like knocked that out of the park. He did such a good job. But once the lyrics were knocked out, he very promptly recorded vocals. So it's kind of like Sanjay was. I was adjusting songs. I would send them to Sanjay. Sanjay would belt out the rhythms, and then I'm trying to remember. I think after all the rhythms were tracked up, I sent Chason out the guitars. He tracked drums to those. That was kind of a mess because it was his first time recording by himself, so he kept like, adjusting the volume on his interface and stuff. So there's a lot of like inconsistencies. Thankfully, Mike is a very competent engineer, and he made everything work. So I'm grateful for that. But he did that. Stevie recorded his vocals. Hugo recorded his bass. I think he finished up his Beyond Creation album first, and then he did our bass.
Yeah, Hugo, what was your end like? Because I know you're kind of pulling double duty with Beyond Creation and doing this. Like, how did that fit in for you, and what did you do?
I decided to wait until I was done recording every bass part for Algorithm before I jumped into Demiurgus. So I think I got done around the end of March. I was done with Algorithm recording, and then I think I might have took a week or two off, and then started Demiurgus right away. Initially, I think we had a deadline in April, but unfortunately, it kind of took a bit longer for all of us, for the better, I think.
Yeah.
But once I started, I think I tried to do it as efficiently as possible. And then Nick was there to help me mentally because of the the challenge of the material, and then it's really time consuming and energy consuming, both physically and mentally, to really sit down and lock yourself into your home studio or whatever is your setup and just do these things. And then summer was approaching, and then I could see like the sun and the warmth outside, and I really just wanted to get done with it so I could just be free and hang out outside, and do some more stuff. I think overall it took maybe a couple weeks, maybe like 2 months total from the first recording to the last recording, and then I did my solos maybe a few weeks after that. Really, really challenging and time consuming, but once it's done, I think it's fair to say it's one of the most satisfactory feelings you can experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because, doing things for two different bands, I was wondering, was it like, at least when you got done with it, you were like, yes, finally, this is it. I feel good about it. Like, it's good to hear that that's where you were at with it.
Yeah, totally. I feel now that I look back into it, I feel like Algorithm was the more mentally challenging because it was my first album replacing Dominic in Beyond Creation. So that was pretty stressful. But once that was done, I really felt lighter, and so. And then I learned a bunch of new tricks from Christian Donaldson, which engineered the bass for Beyond Creation, and also drums and guitars,
nice,
and vocals. So I was just like right out of the studio with him and then doing my own thing for Equipoise was a pretty fun and inspiring combination.
So even though it was kind of stressful, do you feel like maybe you thrive off that a little bit, being able to have all this kind of creative stuff going on with two different bands?
You think you can rephrase the question so I can grasp the full context?
Sure. So, as far as like having all this different work to do with two different bands and being a little bit stressed out about it, do you still think that you kind of thrived creatively off that a little bit more, even though you were stressed out?
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy that needs like a deadline to start working and finish stuff, Otherwise, you can always do it later. So I definitely need the time constraints. But yeah, I feel like that actual time constraint really pushes me to like uh, like express an idea or just write something and then tell myself like commit to it, not just say oh I can always edit it later or rewrite something else. So that's something I need in my workflow. So I think it got the best out of me for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can tell, man. Between the work between both those albums, I really hope more people take notice of you as a bass player within the next few years, man, or even now, obviously, but killer work like across the board on both of them, both you guys. I mean,
Thank
seriously.
You.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.
So with like the record being out now, I mean, I know you've been doing like these little track by track breakdowns on everything, but people seem to be very responsive to it, at least from what I've seen. Does it feel good?
Yeah, it feels really good. I did not expect it at all. Hugo might be a little more used to it because he's been in a big band for a while now.
Sure.
For me, it's like the craziest feeling ever. I still cannot believe, like, I just think of me being the dork who just kind of screwed around Guitar Pro and, like, had no expectations of really anybody listening. And then, like, here we are where I see people, like, telling me constantly, like, oh, dude, like, I'm so sick of seeing your band, man. Everyone on Facebook is just flooding my feed. I'm like, that sucks for you, man, but, I mean, that feels really good for me. So, thanks for telling me that and making me feel good. So it makes me super happy, man. Like I'm just I'm so humbled and just I'm grateful for everything. I really can't get over it. I love all our listeners and fans. They're the best people ever.
Yeah, dude. Just every little thing that gets posted in that Artisan Era group about you guys is hilarious. Love it. There's the one thing I want to say though too is like you guys put in a massive amount of work, just logistically to get this album pulled off, with people being in different areas and different bands. So to make that work and sound just cohesive as it is, that's fucking awesome to be able to make that happen. I mean, and it just kind of speaks to technology being in that place where everybody's able to do that. Because like 10 years ago, that this would have been impossible to do almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I mean, thankfully, like, because it was all composed by the same person, it helped with that baseline cohesive factor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless I was an absolutely dog shit composer. But the only, I guess, like, sort of risk factor, if you will, is maybe vocals, because, that was just kind of off the cuff. Like, Stevie was fully responsible for that. But thankfully, he's very good at, in my mind, phrasing out vocals and the lyric content and everything. So, I was never worried. I always knew he was going to do an incredible job. And then other than that, there's like the solos from people, but again, Sanjay, Phil, and Hugo, and Jimmy. So I had literally zero concerns. I knew everybody that was doing their thing was going to do their thing well. If anything, the only thing people had to worry about was my solos because I'm not good at playing solos. But yeah, I mean, it is crazy how everything pieces together these days.
So then, getting like on the Artisan Era, I mean, Malcolm has a great ear. I mean, so did you know him personally, or like how did you kind of get involved with him and the label?
I didn't really know him too well. I don't know. I chatted with him a few times.
Sure.
Asked, and he seemed like a pretty reserved individual, so I tried to not bother him too much. now I bother him all the time, and I realize I should have kept with my old ideals there because he's probably sick of me now. But no, I became friends with Colin. I want to say after we put out a couple singles.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Butler, I keep bringing him up, but he's been a very integral part of everything in my musical life. So we became friends, and we always were kind of like friendly, competitive with each other, and made jokes. And yeah, I mean, he heard my material, and I showed him other stuff, and he's like, "Oh, like, let me try and help you get signed to the Artisan Era, because Virulent Depravity was on there."
Yeah.
And Malcolm reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, do you have any demos?" And I was like, "I have guitar profiles. Do you want to listen to those?" And he's like, "Sure." And then he hit me up. He's like, "Hey, I want to release your music." And I was like, "Okay."
Damn.
So now sometimes I kind of bust his balls. I'm like, "You signed us with guitar profiles." I don't try to bust his balls too much about it because he get upset with me and Hulk smash me.
I think the stuff he's doing with the label right now is, man, he's killing it. Like everything that's coming out right now is just fucking insane.
I do not think there's an instance. Hugo would probably kill me for saying it, but I don't know if there's an instance where I would like, want to leave the label.
Yeah.
Because like for me, I already see and I've seen for the past several years now the immense potential the label has. Like I know, even if it's not like Metal Blade level yet or anything, I know that give it a couple more years and it will be this massive thing, and I'm happy to be like an earlier part of it. I mean, think about it. It went from just being like Inferi and A Loathing Requiem to now putting out Spawn of Possession vinyl and seeing the Passage stuff and signing all these sick names in the tech death scene. I see all these people be like, "Oh, this is the new unique leader," and they're probably not feeling good about that. But I mean, hey man, like Artisan stepped up and they're killing it, so they kind of earned that title now.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, damn, I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it. Because Unique Leader has done that weird shift where they're like kind of only doing like deathcore and slam bands now, and they used to be more into the technical kind of bands.
I mean, I guess they kind of went with the mentality, like but in all fairness, like tech death is not really a big seller, and deathcore is, and maybe they have the same passions. And I mean, Malcolm seems very passionate about it, but you never know what the future is going to be. And I've heard him say it himself in another podcast, actually. He doesn't know what the future is, and maybe one day he'll be like, "I'm sick of this, man. Like, I'm tired of signing bands that aren't going to make me money. Like, let's just start signing crappy deathcore bands and then kind of, not crappy, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
Pretty run-of-the-mill these days, I would say. Not all deathcore's crap.
I mean, the logistics too, the running a label and trying to pick and choose bands. I mean, that's a hard job within itself too. So, I mean, the fact that he took a chance on you guys speaks volumes to what his ear is,
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely very picky. And like I said, I have two huge influences as a guitarist in the modern scene, and that's Phil Tougas and Malcolm.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond honored that he would consider us, and he told me he's proud of me the other day, and I was like, yes.
That's awesome.
That's all I wanted to hear, Dad. No, but like, he saw potential in us, and I guess apparently it's been rewarded because he said we've been pretty much killing it. We're getting ready to probably do a repress of our vinyl soon.
Damn.
Which almost sold out of those, and he said CDs are getting. I mean, like we're just crushing everything in the merch department, and I guess from his previous bands he's had on the label, like he didn't have such an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels good. Like I just really wanted to make sure we did good by the label and made the money, and because I don't really do this for money. I do. Well, I definitely don't do it for money. I do it for the passion and like being a part of Artisan. I understand it's a business for them, so I wanted to make sure we put out music that really can bring them attention and to an extension money. So I feel pretty good that for being a newer band we're doing well in that department.
Yeah, I've like passively known Malcolm for a number of years because I'm like really local to where he's at, so
Yeah, I saw you're in Chattanooga, right?
yeah. So like back when Inferi first started up, my best friend's band used to play with him all the time, and he was like, "Dude, you don't understand. Malcolm is like one of the best guitar players." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then like sure enough, when Inferi started playing shows around here, it was like, "What the fuck? Like where did this dude come from?" You know? But yeah, it's like he's got this like, I just repeating myself, but he's got this really good ear, like not only with writing music, it's just like picking out the bands that are doing something that's a little bit different, or I don't know, it's just not status quo of like what's being put out these days, and I think that's nice.
Right. No, I agree.
So if I'm not mistaken, is this album like a concept album?
Yes, it is.
It is. What?
Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, I thought so, because the Flamel thing kind of like got me, and I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. Oh, so it's all Full Metal Alchemist. All right.
Entirely Full Metal Alchemist, yes. We are dorks.
That's badass.
Stevie and I kind of discussed like topics, and you play video games like RPGs or anything?
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of Shin Megami Tensei?
I've heard of it. I've not played it.
So that was like when we first started talking. I tried to get him to do lyrics on that, and he bought the game, and then his disc corrupted or something, and he's like, "Fuck this!" Hey Nick, I know you don't watch anime, but please watch Metal Alchemist. I'm like, "Oh man, I don't want to be like a filthy weeb or anything." And, oh man, give it a shot, and I did, and then I watched it, and like, I watched actually both of the Full Metal Alchemist series in probably about a week.
Yeah.
It's like 100-something episodes. I binged it out. It was disgusting. Okay, yeah, so I talked to Stevie. Yeah, my Skype just kind of dropped for no reason.
It's all good.
I talked to Stevie. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. I like this concept a lot. And yeah, did Full Metal Alchemist, and I gave him control. And I said, dude, just do whatever you want with the lyrics. Like, free reign for you, man. And he just kind of took the story and ran with it, and did just this insanely competent job. And I'm so happy how it turned out, because it's so awesome. And like, we're talking about doing AMVs for it too, even. Which is like so tricky, but
well, I mean, it's cool. I mean, I haven't seen anybody do those in a long time, so that'd be pretty neat to put the music to it.
Like, everybody does AMVs, and they do it to like pop punk and stuff. And
yeah.
Like, well, wait a second, we have actual music based on this anime. Like, why don't we just do that? Because then it's like, instead of it being entirely corny, it's just like sort of corny, because at least it's relevant to the visuals. Like, yeah. So I don't know if you saw the AMV we did for Dualis Flamel, like, or rather Stevie did, like the little clip.
I did not.
Like, oh, it's sick. It's like you've seen the series, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember, like Mustang was fighting Lust, and like he burns her to death and snapping his finger.
Yeah.
So he made the anime, the AMV based on that scene, because the ending lyrics of Dualis Flamel are based on him killing her, like the very last part of the song.
Okay.
Where it repeats, and he made the AMV based on it. And it's just so sick, because it's like, it just syncs up with the music, and it's all, oh man, I was like, man, this is so sick. And yeah, he wants to do more now, so I'm very excited about that, because it's a cool concept. And we've been hearing a lot of people saying they started watching it because of our music now, and I think on the other side of things, like, we can reach out to people that like Full Metal Alchemist and kind of appeal to them.
That's true.
Put amps on YouTube, because I mean, I don't know.
That's a pretty big market to tap into. It's the anime market.
I usually just kind of assume like most people don't like death metal, but what's the worst that happens? Like, they hear it and they're like, oh, this sucks, and they don't listen to it, or they're like, oh, this is really sick, and they listen, and I know, why not, right? The AMVs get like millions of views, so that's far more than most tech death fans are getting on anything. So maybe this is the better way to go. It doesn't hurt. It's free to do, so.
Hugo, were you familiar with Full Metal Alchemist before this?
Nope. I actually was just searching it on Google. Now I know what it's all about.
Sanjay watched it recently. He said it was super sick. I think only us three have watched it now, so maybe the rest of the guys will start watching it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I feel like watching.
it's pretty cool. I guess I'm a
I've been talking about it.
I'm like a I'm like a passive anime fan myself. Like I the most recent one my best friend recommended to me that I just burned through was My Hero Academia.
Yeah, I keep hearing about that. I need to watch.
Oh my god, it's so good. I watched it all in like a week and a half. Like, and now I got to wait until October for new episodes, and I'm just like, fuck, hurry up, hurry up.
It's funny because I've never watched an anime that I didn't like, but then I still insult anime all the time.
Yeah.
I've only seen like a meme about like basically people like weebs calling other weebs weebs. Like it's just it's this thing like pretty much most people that watch anime just make fun of it even though they like it. And I'm one of those people. Like I've never hated an anime that I've watched, and I've watched quite a few at this point now. But like I still I mock myself for doing it because it just feels it's like such a dorky thing. I don't know, like the acting's always really cringy and like they always get real red faced over nothing in the shows and just I don't know, just really weird sense of humor that I'm like, man, like I would never show anybody this. Like I'd never go to a stranger and be like, hey, you want to watch anime with me? No, like I'm never telling anybody I watch this.
But, I know. It's super hard too, especially like I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, so like when I have to admit that to somebody, I'm like, yeah.
See, Dragon Ball Z though, I feel like Dragon Ball Z gets like a free pass. Like I love Dragon Ball Z, and I don't even, I never considered myself a weeb at that point. Like, but that's bullshit because like Dragon Ball Z is pretty textbook anime. It's the same as literally any other anime I watch, but for some reason, like everybody loved Dragon Ball Z, so that was okay. Like nobody, you can get a pass for watching Dragon Ball Z, but it was different with like, maybe Naruto. But then anything beyond that was just like, you're getting to that like, you eat all your food with chopsticks and like you speak Japanese.
Yeah, it's too much.
I eat with chopsticks, just Chinese food. I don't go that crazy with it. Like, I'm never gonna eat a sandwich with chopsticks.
So, guys, I don't want to take up any more of your time here. We're about at that hour mark. Regardless, I do appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. I'm glad we finally got to talk about the record a little bit more, and that it's anime influence. It's fucking awesome to know. I was like kind of unsure about that, so it's good confirmation.
Oh yeah, 100%. All anime.
So let's see. Demiurgus just came out about 2 weeks ago now, right?
It came out on the 8th, so I guess we're putting on about
almost
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. So where can people find it right now? I'm assuming pretty much every streaming service or wherever it's on there, right?
Pretty much any streaming service, any digital platform that sells it, like Amazon, Apple Music, Google Music.
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp's the big one. People like to collect on Bandcamp for some reason. That's the thing. They like to have their big old collection, which is cool, man. I love that people are into that. The Artisan Era store, random physical distributors here and there throughout the U.S., I believe. I'm not going to even attempt to begin to know where they would be. I have no clue, but somebody bought one from the store recently. That's all I know.
Nice. And I guess, actually, one last thing here I do want to ask. So this, as far as right now is concerned, this is basically only like a studio project. You guys aren't planning the tour currently because everybody has all these other things that they're kind of involved in. Is that correct?
Well, no.
Not exactly.
Oh.
We're planning on touring, actually.
Okay.
Something very worthwhile.
That's cool. That's good to hear then.
It's nerve-wracking. I'm very, very scared about it, but like, I want it real bad, and I guess I've always kind of wanted it in the back of my head. I never had the plans that I want it more than anything now, so I'm pretty much willing to commit all my free time to make sure it happens now. And I think if it falls through the way it should, people will be like, holy shit, man, and it'll be cool, but nothing confirmed yet.
Okay, cool. I mean, at least there's plans for it. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Well, Hugo, Nick, thank you guys for doing this, man. It was awesome getting to talk to you guys. I was stoked to do this.
Thank you so much, dude.
Thanks to you, man.
Yeah.
excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!